Hi, y'all, and welcome back to the Shifting Schools podcast. My name is Trisha Friedman. I am piloting the show on my own today. We have a real treat of a guest for you. All summer long, we've been talking about the power of play, and this week we want to talk to you about the power of adventure playgrounds. What is an adventure playground? Well, an adventure playground is a place dedicated to play where young people have ownership over how the space is built, altered, and enhanced. It might look like a junkyard. It's filled with materials, usually removed from the waste stream over which children have complete control. An adventure playground is a child-led zone where children can play, supported by trained play workers. I'm reading that to you directly from Playground NYC's Our History page, and that's because I am talking to you today with someone who works with Playground NYC. Again, this is New York City's only adventure playground. It's available to access free. It's an incredible space. We've got lots of lessons in sustainability and lots of ways to be thinking more about the rights of the child through the lens of an adventure playground. We're speaking with the interim director, head play worker, and co-founder of Playground NYC. That's Yoni Kalai. And folks, I know you're going to be super interested in the concept of adventure playgrounds, and you're going to be thinking more about how you might create that space in your own community. So please be sure to head over to the show notes to learn more about Playground NYC, the nonprofit, as well as adventure playgrounds. Before we dig in with this week's guest, we do have a quick word from our show sponsor.
Discover the power of acknowledgement with Libra. In a world where every staff member's dedication shapes the future, recognizing their efforts becomes our mission. Libra transforms your school into a place where achievements, big and small, are celebrated daily, creating a ripple effect of motivation and pride. Join the recognition revolution with Libra, where every achievement is a cause for celebration. For more information and a free demo, contact me at jeff@shiftingschools.com today. Librarians, meet MacEnvision, the future of library management. With a student-centered design, MacEnvision's intuitive interface and seamless navigation ensures that your students find the information they need quickly and effortlessly. Discover how MacEnvision can transform your school at macen.com/MacEnvision.
And with that, please welcome interim executive director of the nonprofit organization Playground NYC, Yoni Kalai, to the show. Yoni, I'm so excited to have you here. In research for this series on play, when I was learning more about Playground NYC, your work, what the nonprofit does, I was just almost mind blown by the many different types of lessons that your organization has for folks in education or for anybody that has anything to do with young children. I'm hoping we can start off actually by exploring what we can learn about the rights of children, or even the way that society sees childhood when we learn more about your nonprofit. Can you say more about what you think Playground NYC is telling folks about the rights of the child?
I'd be happy to. And thank you, first of all, for having me on. The truth is that most people who talk with me don't ask about children's rights. And for me, that is the primary thing here. People often think that we are about construction or about breaking or about a number of things, risky play. All of those are just on the way to supporting young people, making their voices heard, making space for them. Unfortunately, that is not how things are in society. I firmly believe that all people all over the world, the one thing that is common to all of us is that we start as young people. And when we are at that point in life, we are physically weaker and we don't have information about things. And that makes us seen as unintelligent, as less than, and justifies a lot of mistreatment towards young people, which in turn then becomes either something that we carry on and then basically act out in similar ways towards others as agents of oppression, be it around age or other identities, or just make us more susceptible to accepting other forms of oppression coming in towards us. So for us, it's very important to give as much authority, autonomy, respect to the young people as we possibly can. We still do operate in this society with all kinds of constraints that sometimes make us have to put certain limits that maybe if it was my family, I wouldn't, or anything else. But yeah, we're mostly giving a lot of permission, a lot of space, a lot of trusting that they can figure things out. They might make mistakes, but that's part of learning. When we do make mistakes, we try to make them right, but we try to not characterize anyone who made a mistake as bad, as stupid, as any number of things that happen to us very regularly when we're at school, in our families, and society at large.
It's really beautiful to hear you talk about reclaiming that kind of space where children are affirmed in that way. They have those freedoms that are essential as we're forming our identity. And then there's also this added layer that I think is letting them know too. I think sometimes we talk about teaching about sustainability and we overcomplicate it. Whereas I feel like the work that your organization is doing is also just in a very straightforward way modeling if we want these great affirming spaces, we don't necessarily have to go and spend a gazillion dollars on brand new things creating waste. You're also looking at what we can do with what currently exists. Can you say more about that model? Because I feel like that's, again, such a powerful message that anybody who's going into one of your spaces probably can't help but notice.
Yeah, we use junk, things that others don't want, don't need, which there is so much of that in society, but especially in New York City, it's mind blowing what people throw out, some people. So we bring things, we give them a third, a second, a fourth life, because even within our space, something that gets used and is a stage where it can't be used as it was intended, it could still be broken down into other parts that can still be used. Or at the very least, we have our smash zone where the kids can just really break things, smash them for the fun, for getting out anger, for whatever they choose. And we really don't need to spend all this money on buying materials, making new things when there's so much already out there. What we need is to focus on people. And so almost all of our budget goes to paying people. We have very little for other things. And I'll say that the benefit also is that junk is not so precious to people, specifically adults. So that means that even when there are things that we are wanting to maybe keep in certain condition, we didn't buy it. So we're not as attached to it, and things get broken, and we know that's part of the deal, and it's totally fine. And with a lot of it, we're not even feeling that connected to it. If they want to saw off some piece of wood, then that's totally fine, and they get to play with it and figure things out. When everything is, who wants to live in a museum where you can't touch anything and you can't play with it?
Yeah, it's for so many reasons, as you've pointed out, that as a model just makes sense. I'm going to encourage my listeners, maybe you should even pause the episode here, check out the link in the show notes so that you can explore the Playground NYC website. You've got information in that space about what is called a play residency. I've never heard of that before, as well as pop-up spaces for play. I think that is such a great idea, such a needed idea, especially right now.
Thank you for tuning in to Shifting Schools. Let's pause our discussion to spotlight Libra HQ, a breakthrough in using AI to deepen connections within organizations. Imagine an environment where every staff member feels truly seen and valued. This is the heart of Libra's mission. Libra transforms how leaders celebrate and recognize the personal and professional milestones of their team members. It's not just about reminders. Libra's AI dives deeper, offering insight into enhanced team cohesion and promote a culture where support and acknowledgement are paramount. Picture a school where every individual is acknowledged, from work achievements to personal victories, creating a culture of appreciation in just minutes a day. In these challenging times, where the demands on educators have never been higher, Libra offers a way for school leaders to lead with true empathy and compassion, ensuring every team member feels an integral part of their community's success. Discover how Libra can revolutionize your school's culture. For a demo, contact me at jeff@shiftingschools.com. Let's build a future where every educator and staff member feels connected and valued. And now, let's get back to our conversation.
Can you tell us a little bit more about those concepts, what a play residency is and what a pop-up space for play might be?
Play residency was just us having a residency at the museum, the Brooklyn Children's Museum, before we opened our space, the yard. So we had a month long where we had set up an environment for play and supported play in that environment for that month. What we created there was very much similar to pop-ups that we do, and those are generally one-time or a few-time events where we come to a space, indoor or outdoor, bring materials, again, focus on junk, on cardboard for recycling, on old pots and pans that you're throwing out because the Teflon got scratched or whatever it is. There's so many things that we can use to play with. And we just, again, create the space, and we tell parents to, hey, please give the kids the space to play. We try to make the space also inviting for the parents to sit on the side if we want them to not be overly controlling and kind of stopping the kids from being able to play as they please. We need to think about their experience too. Having a place for them to sit, maybe some games that they can engage with, some reading material, some shade to be in if it's a hot sunny day.
Yeah, I've been following along with, I would hesitate to use the word popular because I think it's still rare, but it seems like a number of playgrounds are starting to have some signage that tries to make it more clear and obvious to parents and caretakers. You don't have to mediate. You don't have to step in. The playground is the space for children to lead their own learning or to lead their own enjoyment of play. Can you talk about what that has been like? Because I think there's like an education piece for a lot of parents and caretakers. Like the playground as an environment has changed so much just within my own lifetime, where when I was a kid, I would go to the playground by myself. I'd meet up with other kids who were there by themselves. We would play or invent a game, and we didn't have anybody stepping in or correcting. And now, when I go to my neighborhood playground, it's either empty or sometimes the parents outnumber the kids. Can you talk about what it has meant or what it's taken for you to help parents take that step back? I love that you mentioned like maybe giving them something else to do. That's a very clever way, but I'm guessing maybe you've had to just be really explicit in what you're trying to do with your spaces.
Yeah. So it's very different when we're talking about the yard versus a pop-up. The yard is fenced. There are play workers inside. And we just, from the get-go, tell parents, you can't come in. If you need your child, we'll go get them for you. And if this isn't right for you, you don't have to send your child in the first place, which is not necessarily my ideal. There are ways in which I would want parents to see more and learn which they don't get to do as much when we keep them out. But we also, with the volume we're dealing with, we can't educate them fast enough to give the kids the experience. And we choose to operate in this way. For pop-ups, it's more in the public space. There often isn't a clear boundary or a holding space for the kids. So it is more understandable that parents might feel the need to be inside. And also, these are often skewed younger, whereas the yard generally is mostly elementary school ages, and pop-up events might be a little bit more in the 3 to 5 range as the kind of main age of users. But yes, we try to tell parents with signs, with words, to sit back, relax, trust them, make space. If you see something that you believe is an immediate danger, of course, we want you to step in. We are not looking for anyone to get hurt. That's not our goal. But the conversation has shifted so much to trying to mitigate all chances of getting hurt, as if the toe or a splinter or a little scratch are a big deal. And forgetting that by eliminating the chances of those things happening, we're not just eliminating those hurts, we are eliminating chances to learn from experiences, from trying things, from moving your body in all kinds of ways, from social interactions. When we don't have those opportunities, we're losing out on huge benefits, and we are causing psychological, physical hurts that take longer to see than that splinter or that cut on your hand, but are probably more significant. Lady Allen of Hartwood, who brought adventure play from Denmark to England, famously is quoted to be saying, better a broken bone than a broken spirit.
Yeah. And again, as you mentioned, especially in the US, like the architecture of playgrounds has changed so much in that attempt to like shelter. But as you point out, you're talking about what is the learning that you're stripping away? We have to learn how to interact with the world. And you mentioned the adventure aspect, and the yard is a quote adventure playground. And it is through your nonprofit that I first learned also about that concept. Can you outline what is the difference between the average playground that maybe somebody has just gone to this week versus the concept of the adventure playground?
Most playgrounds that we see these days are very similar to each other. They have some kind of a climbing frame where the kids can go up and down with a slide, perhaps, maybe with a coal, not always. It's all rubberized, padding around, and then maybe there's a swing set. It's kind of it. They add like flipping cubes that you can't move elsewhere for tic-tac-toe or whatever, but it's very limited. An adventure playground has a lot of materials and specifically a lot of loose parts, things that young people have the option to play with, to move, to have the autonomy, the authority to create things with them, break them if that's what's coming up, explore. We don't have a rubberized surface. We have dirt. We have the option to dig into the dirt and use a hose. Something as simple as that can occupy young people for hours, days. We have a kid who's been coming to us for years, and almost every time he'll spend a good amount of the time playing with water. He has his old waterworks project, and he's always funneling the water from one place to another and damming and creating valves out of balls and tubes, and it's amazing. So they have all of these materials. We also provide tools. We don't give any power tools, only hand tools, hammers, saws, but scissors, shovels, and then the main other difference is the play workers. And that's maybe the most important part, because the regular playground has no staffing. You have a huge amount of money that you put in the beginning. You have this beautiful, which maybe that's a question of taste, but let's say it's beautiful thing that all that money got poured into, and that's it. And for us, it's a space that is always evolving, and the kids get to have a new experience every time. Instead of every time I come here, it's the same place. For us, it's every time they come, something is different. They get to find new materials. They get to see that the fort that they were working on, someone changed it. And the play workers are supporting the interactions between the kids, like each other, between kids with the space, with the environment, with the materials. And that keeps money ideally in your community rather than just plastic manufacturing and who knows what.
And I love that part of the vision for your nonprofit is to train this new generation of play workers. And part of the reason that we wanted to host you is we love pointing our listener community to nonprofits so they can tell their students about them. Because I do think Playground NYC, maybe somebody is listening in Kansas and is thinking, hey, like Wichita needs this. Somebody on the other side of the world is listening and is thinking, yeah, this idea, this mission that a city or a community can be transformed by play. What a cool concept. You've got the sustainability factor built in. And then you also have this aspect that you mentioned at the start, the people. It's the most important part of it.
Mackin Educational Resources has once again partnered with us for our summer mini-series. Thank you to Mackin for continuing to be a partner of the Shifting Schools community. Their new product, Mackin Vision, is the future of library management. Created with your students' need at the forefront, Mackin Vision offers a user-friendly interface that simplifies navigation, making it easy for students to find what they need. This state-of-the-art system includes features like intuitive browsing, secure multi-level access, multimedia searching, and whole school rostering. Additionally, it has a teacher library portal, aggregated dashboard, live analytics, and centralized reporting. Mackin Vision is designed to streamline your school's library operations. Learn more about how Mackin Vision can benefit your school at mackin.com/MackinVision. Schedule your free demonstration and experience the future today.
Can you share with us a story about what that aspect of training this new generation of play workers, like, can you share with us an anecdote of someone who's joined the organization as a play worker and what that work looks like, or at the risk of sounding cheesy, what it feels like? Because I could imagine this is really critical work. We're seeing in the news all the time this mental health crisis that we have. Folks are feeling really isolated. Playgrounds, play spaces. I do think this is a very real part of mitigating this crisis.
Yeah. I will say that our goals are much bigger than our reach thus far.
Thus far.
We've had several tens of people who have worked for us over the years that we've existed. And then we've trained some other people in play work. Beyond that, when we do our training for new play workers every year, we open that to the public for anyone else who might be interested in joining. And I've offered training to other groups elsewhere, and there are other resources out there in the world for playwork training. That's not our main operation. So if this is something that is interesting for you, reach out to us, reach out to other organizations that do amazing work. What I have noticed is that, unfortunately, what we pay our play workers is well below what I want to be paying them. And childcare in general is not something that is well compensated. But I see that despite the fact that we don't pay that much and that it's physically demanding work and all of those things, people, for the most part, who start working for us really appreciate the work, really want to continue. And it becomes a big thing for them. And I hear how it's something that they're talking with their families about, or their spouses or friends. And it is something that kind of permeates into society. I don't know what to call the process exactly, but it's really going from one person to the next, and it's impacting how we see things in the day-to-day. When you then consider going into other places of work, if you're leaving us, for that matter, it's informing your view of things. And where can you allow for risk? Where can you make for space for these interactions, for the young people to have the autonomy, the authority to make decisions? And I also have seen parents who've come to us and helped them shift their parenting approach through what they're seeing. Because for us personally, the yard is a destination. We are not in a community per se. Nobody lives on Governor's Island. So we have a wide reach in a sense of getting to many families, but then nobody spends a lot of time with us. And we want our approach to be something that is part of your daily life. We're trying to work with schools to see how they can incorporate some of our approach into recess. They don't have to give hammers and saws to kids in order to get a lot of the adventure play and the play work approach into recess. When all you're giving them is a big asphalt court with a ball and a tree, there's not a lot for them to do. And then they start making each other the loose parts and seeing what kind of a reaction can I get out of my friend, out of my teacher. You're going to see a lot more fights, a lot more problems showing up in different ways when there aren't good options for play. It also relates to the fact that we see, like, why are video games so appealing? Because that's where everyone's at. If a kid now wants to go out, they go out on the street and nobody's there. So they don't want to play alone for that much. And maybe their parents aren't allowing them to go out. So, of course, video games have developers working on them for so much time to make them appealing. Then, yes, that's what the kids want to be doing. But when we have kids coming to us, they'll play for hours on end. They're not getting bored. They're not asking for their electronics or anything like that.
And they're learning how to become problem solvers, I'm willing to bet, and they're getting that social connection too. I'm wondering if in closing, Yoni, you could share with us, because I'm guessing that some of the parents or caretakers have communicated how that space has had such a powerful impact on their child. Does anything come to mind in terms of something that a parent has told you and something they've noticed as the result of their child going to the yard, even just a few times? Does any kind of feedback spring to mind right now?
First thing that comes to my mind is parents sharing about the confidence that they were able to see in their child, which was showing up with them being on the subway in New York and hanging a little bit from the bars. And it was just in a way that parent could very well see a certain confidence of like self-esteem, of feeling empowered enough to be able to do something that maybe is not accepted anywhere, or using your body. And nobody was getting hurt here. Risk, if you will, is really minimal. And yet the impact on the young person is very clear. A different example that I want to share, we had, I think he was a preteen in our camp. He ended up wrestling with one of our playworkers. And this was not light wrestling, but it was still wrestling. Nobody was being punched or anything like that. And the next day, the mom comes and was like giving ice cream to this play worker with so much gratitude to the experience that her son must have told her about at home, about being able to play in such a way that I imagine that he wants to do a lot and is not given the space for it anywhere. Wrestling, rough and tumble play is something that mammals do. And we're so scared of violence that maybe we could do a little bit with toddlers, that they can't do anything. But once a kid becomes a little bit more physically able, we get really scared, like something terrible is about to happen. Someone's going to get hurt, and oh my God. Or tears. Like, tears are fine too. Like, we shouldn't be afraid of tears. Yeah, those are things that come to mind first for me.
Yeah, it's interesting, Yoni. You're having me think about my own upbringing, and I was very privileged to get to play on a number of sports teams where some of that rough play is part of the game. Tears are often part of the game. There's the injury aspect, and I feel like that's maybe a context where we feel a little more comfortable with it. Even that has changed. Not every child is interested in being on a sports team or has access. A number of teams are really outrageously expensive now. So what you're talking about in terms of just needing some physical play and having access to it and getting to experiment with it again as acceptable risk really resonates, because a number of the guests who have been a part of this Power of Play series have talked about how personal play is, how every single one of us has a play preference and different types of play that we really enjoy. And part of the conversation that we need to have with young folks is really nudging them to think about, what do you want play to look like in your life? Because it's not going to be the same. Like for me right now, play is gardening. That would not have been my chosen play style like 20 years ago. And even still, it's not everybody's thing. So to what extent, coming full circle to the rights of the child, to what extent are we really giving them those opportunities to discover the kind of play that they really need right now?
Yeah. In playwork academia, which exists in the UK, they talk about types of play: rough and tumble, locomotive, social play, dramatic. There's all sorts. And if we go back to talking about an adventure playground compared to a regular playground, the regular playground only gives you the option for gross motor skills: climbing, jumping, swinging, running, maybe. That's kind of it. And we have costumes, we have instruments, we have tools, we have permission to play with things in a way that you can explore different identities and topics and themes, which in a kid could pretend to be a cop and a robber at a regular playground. You want to be cooking, and do you have something that looks like a pan or a pot to be playing with, or do you not have anything? And then it limits your options for play. We have no agenda of how they will play. At our camp, there is no schedule other than coming and leaving. They are free to choose how they play the whole time, which, from what I hear of other camps that are said to be similar to us, it's still now is sword fighting time. And if you don't want to sword fight, you can read a book. But if you have to sword fight, that's not really freedom. If you can sword fight or cook or do a million and one other things, that is freedom.
Gosh, and I'm so glad that you've come on the show. Listeners, check out the website. I'm also going to link to a great YouTube video that sort of shows it in action. What you're saying is so necessary and needed, and the idea of learners, of humans, being able to pick their own type of play. It's interesting that it's a radical idea. It shouldn't be a radical idea, but it is right now. I'm really hoping your model, the Yard, Playground NYC, we just hear more and more of these, that idea spreading. Because again, I think you've done a great job of showing how it's possible, how it can be human-centered and sustainable. So thank you so much for talking about your work and your leadership. And I look forward to watching the story of Playground NYC, the nonprofit, continue to evolve. I hope you have a really great, playful rest of your summer.
Thank you so much for having me. And for all the listeners, go on an adventure for yourselves and for those around you.